Go.
Hello, tonight is the 42nd day of the Omer as we reach the home stretch towards Shavuos, completing 6 weeks, and we reach the Midah in our 48 ways to acquire Torah of Shoel Umeshiv, asking and answering. How important this Midah is. Compare or contrast how a yeshiva looks with how a college study hall looks. Walk into any college during exam preparation time and you can hear a pin drop. Everyone is sitting by themselves, poring over their notes, their textbooks, studying away into the wee hours of the night. Then walk into a yeshiva lahavdil, and you'll see the exact opposite. True, they're there to the wee hours of the night, but it's far from a quiet place. It's bustling with activity, with shouting, with screaming, with hand waving. And indeed, what does all that mean? Shoel Umeshiv, asking and answering. The whole yeshiva system has always been based on a aseh lecha rav u'kanei lecha chaver. It's not just enough to have a Rabbi, a good Rabbi, and go to shir. You must have a chavrusa, and indeed most of the day in the yeshiva is spent with your chavrusa. What do the chavrusas do? They ask and they answer. They question each other, they attack each other, and indeed this is extremely important, because Chazal tell us, Ein Adam Omed al Divrei Torah el Imke Nichshabot Tchila. No one can truly understand Torah unless he first makes mistakes. And this is the job of the chavrusas. They catch each other's mistakes, they correct each other, and indeed through this gain a true understanding of whatever the topic is they are studying. This basis of Shoel Umeshiv is not just in the Chavrus, in the Beis Medrash, but indeed is the basis of all the texts that we have in our Holy Torah. Look in the Gemara. The Gemara is filled with debates from beginning to end. Every page, people are asking, answering, attacking, explaining, back and forth, back and forth. The Shakla of the Gemara indeed is filled with Shoel Umeshiv. But it doesn't stop there. Look at Rashi, look at Tosas, back and forth, Im Tomar, Yesh Lomar, questions and answers, attacks and defenses. No one is spared. Even Rashi, the great Zaidi, the great-grandfather, is indeed cut to shreds by his grandchildren. But that's the Darcha Shel Torah. That's the way indeed we gain a true understanding of Limud HaTorah. But there's another girsa in this Mishnah which I think is very important and is particularly apropos in this period between Pesach and Shavuos. The other girsa is not just simply Shoel Umeshiv, but it's Shoel Kedin Umeshiv Ka'alocha, asking properly and answering properly. What do those words mean, asking properly and answering properly? Of course, simple explanation is that when you ask a question and you give an answer, indeed it has to be to the point. Don't go off on tangents. Don't confuse the issue. Stick to the subject at hand. But I think there's a deeper meaning here as well. In the period between Pesach and Shavuos, we all mourn the death of Rabbi Akiva's 24,000 students. But what's very interesting is when the Gemara presents the fact that he had 24,000 students, it says he had 12,000 pairs of students. Why does it say that? Because that indeed related to why they were punished so severely. Where was the problem? As the Torah says, as the Gemara explains, Lo noagu kavod zeh bozeh. They didn't act with honor toward one another. We can connect what was the problem. We can connect this indeed to the fact that it says 12,000 pairs. In the Chavrusa setting, where one is asking, the other is answering, one is attacking, the other is defending, that's all very important. But it has to be Shoel Kedin Umeshiv Ka'alocha. There has to be a way to ask and a way to answer. What do I mean? It all has to be done with respect. The tendency in a person, when he indeed wants to attack, is to be sarcastic, is to be critical, that the tone of voice conveys the fact that you feel the person made a big, big mistake. It takes a lot of character, indeed, to resist that temptation and to ask. Indeed, it's important to ask, but to ask kedin, to follow the dinei Torah of how to maintain the person's dignity as indeed you cut him to shreds. And the same thing, Meshiv Kalacha, when you answer, you also have to answer with kavod, with dignity, and to make sure that the person whom you're answering doesn't feel worthless from the fact that you show that his question indeed had no basis. Shoel Kedin and Meshiv Kalacha has a very, very important quality, therefore. We must learn how to ask and how to answer, and indeed to always maintain the Torah midos in our asking and answering. There's a third point that I want to bring across, which is something that I experienced myself when I was in Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim. The Rosh Yeshiva, Zatzal, always made sure that the shir was filled with questions and answers. It was always hustling and bustling. One day, as we were going through the sugya, the Rosh Yeshiva gave a certain pshat, and I asked a question. The Rosh Yeshiva heard the question, and he thought, and then he said, "You're right, you've destroyed my shir." He closed the book, and he went home. But it doesn't stop there. It turns out he spent the whole night staying up to make sure he could come the next day with the answer to the question that I, a young bacher, had asked. What does this teach you? How important Shoel Umeshiv is. Then the Rosh Yeshiva could easily have said, that's a stupid question, said something which just would be beyond my ability to understand, and not admit the fact that I indeed asked a question that was made the whole shir destroyed. Instead, he admitted the truth. He went home and worked hard to find a second answer that indeed could cover the problem. This teaches us a very, very important fact, that when a person gives an answer, it also has to be an answer that carries with it emes, truth. If you don't know the answer, better say, I don't know. In fact, Rashi in several places in Chumash says, I don't know. Rashi could have easily simply omitted. If he didn't know the pshat, he could have simply left blanks. Many places in Chumash Rashi does not explain. But he wanted to teach us the importance that it's much better to say I don't know than to give an answer that does not fit the truth. Therefore, when we approach Shavuos and we dedicate ourselves to Limud Torah, that in the coming year more and more of our time should be spent not chalila wasted on pursuits which are not important, but concentrated ever more on Limud Torah. We also have to carry with it the resolution that this Limud Torah should be in the highest degrees of emes, the highest degrees of truth, as in the Torah is called Torah's emes. Have a good Yontif, and may this year be the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mher v'yameinu. Okay, it's good.